Despite billions of dollars, the Liberal media might be turning on Justin Trudeau. Ladies and gents, welcome back. Justin Trudeau has been doing anything he can to deflect from this Chinese interference debacle happening in Ottawa. He's been wanting to shut it down faster than Chrystia Freeland could shut down her Disney Plus, but the mainstream media is not even buying into it on this one. Brian Lilley pointing out on Twitter yesterday, every major newspaper in Toronto, Toronto's liberal fortress, has called for a public inquiry. This includes the liberal-friendly Toronto Star, pointing out this headline here. Johnston's report into foreign interference failed to provide the needed transparency. An inquiry is needed. If I don't have, maybe I have to remind you, but the Toronto Star is probably the most liberal of liberal publications out there. You're usually the lapdog of the Liberal Party, but here they are railing against them. Democracy is built on trust. It's the opening line in David Johnston's first report on the foreign interference in our electoral process, and it was repeated by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in his response to that report. Going on to say, Johnston has provided assurances to Canadians without showing us his homework, asking for us to trust with the transparency needed for Canadians to judge the validity of his assurances. Now, here's that article here, here's more articles here from the Toronto Star. Insider who leaked foreign interference secrets should be praised, not punished. There's been calls to, go after these individuals, saying that they're traitorous and they're treasonous. No, I would say the opposite. These are patriots that are looking out for the better interests of Canadians. And I'm going to have to say, for probably one of the first times ever, I agree with the Toronto Star on this one. We showed you this article yesterday. Trudeau imperils his career with continued bad judgment. Check out yesterday's video to go over this article here. Again, another Toronto Star. Johnston's report into foreign interference failed to provide the needed transparency. An inquiry is needed, an actual transparent public inquiry. No, he decided he wanted to go ahead with an inquiry, but this is going to be a behind closed doors, in secret inquiry that's going to actually entrap anyone that they pull in. So you need to understand the situation that's happening here. Any politician who signs up to be a part of this inquiry will be slapped with a gag order that you're sworn to secrecy. You cannot talk about what was provided to you in these reports, even publicly known information for that matter. National Post even chiming in on this one. Raymond D'Souza, the shame of Johnston lending his trust to the Trudeau Liberals. He's no longer Governor General, but deferred to the government nonetheless. It gives me no pleasure to say I was right. Others were right too. David Johnston should never have accepted his appointment as independent special rapporteur on Chinese election interference. I wrote a few weeks back that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attracts prominent, accomplished people to government who later leave diminished, discouraged, and damaged. Yeah, any legacy that this guy had, Paul Rouleau, a number of legacy appointees have all tarnished their reputations for the sake of Trudeau and keeping the status quo. This is what's happening. Another article from National Post. More conflict allegations face David Johnston over Liberal donor legal advisor. It makes it smell even worse that key advisor Johnston selects seems to be a long-time donor only to the Liberal Party, says Democracy Watch official. And it goes on and on and on, even the CBC chiming in on this. Whatever happened in 2019 and 2021, China has succeeded in starting a political frenzy. Absolutely, around Justin Trudeau. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's efforts to move past allegations of foreign interference in elections aren't working. They're not, because even the mainstream media can't shut up about it, because Canadians want to know the truth. We want to know what's actually happening. And we're seeing even in publications, cartoons such as this, where you're whitewashing over the foreign interference and using some old geezer to come in and do your bidding for you. Now, Johnston himself says that, well, there is no conflict of interest because he didn't have any relations with Trudeau all the way up until him even becoming prime minister. And here are his words saying that exactly.
In that period of time, until he became a Liberal member of Parliament and I was Governor General, I had no meetings with Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Justin Trudeau. I had no letters that I can recall, no telephone calls. The only occasion I recall meeting him in that period of 40 years was at the funeral of his father, which my wife and I attended. So there was no interaction.
Oh, here's some interactions
to the current Prime Minister
were happening at the time.
Friendly kind, other than the respect I have for a graduate of McGill University.
Oh boy. Well, it turns out that none of that is actually true. Here's a video that's been circling around on Twitter, and well, I'll let it play.
And the family have become good friends, and our friendship with Mr. Trudeau goes back to children's days when our 5 daughters and he and his two brothers skied together at Mont Tremblant.
Yeah, tell us a little more of that, because a lot of Canadians don't realize that you, in fact, were a very good friend of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and that your family, you knew all the Trudeau kids when they were growing up.
I guess it shows what a small country Canada is.
Oh, what a small
world. When Mr. Trudeau left politics, came back to Montreal, his house was just on the edge of the McGill campus, and I and the rector of the University of Montreal were working very hard for him to return to the University of Montreal Faculty of Law, where he'd been a constitutional law professor, and to have a joint appointment to McGill. His 3 boys were the same age as our 5 daughters, so we were kind of a ski party from time to time
buddies.
at Mont Tremblant, where we have a place and would ski on weekends. So we got to know the children, and our friendship, our relationship was really built out of childhood exchanges. And our children had enormous respect for Mr. Trudeau Sr. He was a wonderful father and very good with children. He would lead them into discussions that
intimately knowing about family
let's
interactions.
Talk about how many functioning democracies there are in the world, for example. This was with teenagers. It was just great.
Yeah. Trudeau and his family friend want to cover up Beijing election interference. Absolutely. This is what's going on. Now, when asked specifically about that, about the allegations of, the appearance of conflict of interest, well, he says that he was cleared. David Johnston says that he was cleared by a judge.
Can say, with respect to the allegations of an appearance of conflict of interest, I took the trouble of seeking a legal opinion from a retired Supreme Court Justice, that's Justice Frank Iacobucci. He was very clear that there's no conflict of interest with respect to the Trudeau obligation, so I have no doubt whatsoever that I had any conflict of interest, and no doubt at all, speaking myself, about my impartiality or my ability to bring my record such as it is for you to judge as to whether I'm capable of carrying out a impartial and inquiry based on integrity.
Right. So the idea is that there is appearance of conflict of interest, and that's why he sought out a judge to help clear him of that conflict of interest. Who was that judge, by the way? A Trudeau Foundation fellow member. Yeah, you can't make this up, folks. This is absolutely just disgraceful. It's unbelievable. But we need to look into these serious allegations of interference into our politics here in Canada. This is a serious issue. It's not a laughing matter, and it's not a laughing matter to Christian Lepreet of the Royal Military College of Canada, who says that there is serious issues, and the reason why they're not looking into it is because of how many people might be ensnared in this problem.
So we have had ample time to have an honest discussion, which I think people are not prepared to have. It is also why people are resisting a foreign agent registry, because of the number of Canadian elites that would get ensnarled in such a registry. These are very serious matters in a parliamentary democracy, and there are many options available to the government today if it wants to show that it is serious about defending Canadian democracy. We need to decide, are we standing with the tyrants or are we standing up for Canadian democracy?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is why Pierre Pierre Poilievre is chiming in so fervently about this. I mean, as someone who's saying we need this kind of transparency, you would say, well, I bet he's not involved in it because he wants the doors opened. But here we go.
David Johnston announced that he does not think a public inquiry is needed into alleged foreign meddling in the past 2 federal elections. Johnston based his conclusion on intelligence information that the federal opposition leader was not cleared to view. I want to ask your opinion on this, Mr. Poilievre. Will you take the Prime Minister up on his offer to obtain the heightened security clearance if you can see classified information into this yourself?
So I'm not going to be muzzled. And what I think Trudeau is trying to do here is put a bunch of paper in front of me that has information that's already public, mark it secret, and then say, you can't speak about this anymore because now you've seen classified material. It's a crafty way to silence critics, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to be silenced. What we actually need is a full public inquiry with a...
And this is what I was referring to earlier when I was saying that this whole idea of having this private inquiry, this behind closed doors inquiry, is a way of ensnaring politicians who are speaking out openly and publicly about this and putting pressure on them to join in so that they can be silenced, so that they won't keep continuing along this path, which all Canadians want to hear about, including left-leaning mainstream media at this point.
A former judge who's skilled at dealing with national security issues to look into the allegations, to see why Beijing interfered in 2 successive elections to help Trudeau win. Why did Beijing give $140,000 to the Trudeau Foundation in order to influence the Prime Minister? These are questions to which we need real answers, and opening a public inquiry will deliver those answers.
Absolutely. So the judge that was appointed to be the special rapporteur is part of the organization that is being investigated, and the guy who is looking into whether or not this was it was a conflict of interest is also part of that organization that's being investigated. You can't make this up. But here's Justin Trudeau saying about how that this is Pierre Poilievre trying to hide the truth somehow.
And Pierre Poilievre is choosing to sit behind a veil of ignorance instead. He doesn't want the facts to get in the way of a good political argument or a personal attack. I think Canadians have to ask themselves the question, is that a serious leader? Is that a serious way to handle something as important as foreign countries trying to mess with our democracy, with our businesses, with our diaspora communities?
If that sounds psychopathic, well, that's because it is. He's currently trying to cover up the knowledge of what happened during the 2019 and the 2021 elections and says that the people who are trying to open up the information and have more transparency are the ones trying to hide the information. Unbelievable. But anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of this whole situation. Well, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.